Welcome back to an exciting video, and what we're talking about today is guitar setup, intonation, neck, and nut. So I wanted to get this video knocked out because I'm actually getting ready to wipe my computer, so I'm going to be down for a few days. As much fun as that's going to be. Had this PC. It's a pretty powerful PC, but it's I've had it about 3 years and I haven't wiped it yet. So things are starting to slow down, so I'm going to clean it. So I wanted to get this done because I get a tremendous amount of questions about guitar setup and things like that. What do I do? How do I fix this? My guitar will not stay intonated. Constantly, allergies. Constantly having problems keeping my guitar in tune, so on and so on. So now this guitar is set up flawlessly. This is the guitar I play mainly at my shows. And this is an Ibanez, as you can see. And I had to do, when I got this guitar, when I bought this, even when I got it from Sweetwater and went through its, whatever it is, 4,000 point inspection, it still came set up like shit. So I had to go in and do quite a bit of work to get it how I wanted it. So what we're going to do is we're just going to run through how all this works in conjunction to make it work correctly. It's not just one thing. It's a multitude of things to set up a guitar and to keep it set up. So I'm not going to bring out tools and start wrenching on this guitar because it is set up perfectly, but I am going to tell you what to do because like I said, I get just a tremendous amount of questions on how to do this. So what I highly recommend is they make these little measuring tools. I don't know how much well you're going to be able to see this, of course. It's so small. One side is inches and one side's 1/2 millimeters, 1/2 inches. And it gives you a scale on the back of what all the measurements are and how to convert them from one to the other. But any guitar shop worth its salt is going to have this in there to measure things off. Now, one thing about guitar setup, it really comes down to feel, because what I like on my setup may not be how you like. So there is no set of instructions on exactly where everything should be. It truly comes down to feel. If you go to the internet and you type in, what should the string height be at the first fret, you're going to get 10,000 different answers. So that's kind of a waste of time to go through there and start researching that out. People who do this well, they do this through doing it a lot. And then they finally get to a point where they like a certain setup. Then at that point, you can go in there and start measuring one guitar you have that it's set up extremely well to give you kind of a basis to set up all your other guitars by. With that being said, because you know me, I will sit here and babble on forever. Let's jump into this and I'm going to tell you what I'm talking about. All right, so when you're setting up a guitar, the first thing you need to do, new strings. New strings are a must. You cannot set up a guitar with old strings. It will never, ever work. So put new strings on the guitar. And this is, of course, for a Floyd Rose type system with a floating trim system on it. What I'm talking about here. Put new strings on a guitar. Now, this is what I do, and I get a lot of people asking me this question. That's why I'm doing this. Take the nut, the locking nuts, just go ahead and pull those off and leave those off. Restring the guitar, and after you get the guitar strung, stretch these strings like crazy. Tune the guitar, stretch them, tune the guitar, stretch them, tune the guitar. Keep doing that to where when you're stretching them, you're having to retune very minimally. That is critical because if you don't have these properly stretched before you start setting up, the strings are going to continue to stretch over time until they start to get to that point. So stretch them, and if you got to spend 20 minutes doing this, trust me, it's worth it in the long run because we're doing this to get a correct guitar setup, one that will last, that you won't constantly be dicking with to keep things in tune and so on. On this guitar, I can well on this trim system. And let me tell you, I am brutal on this thing. And I maybe have to retune it every 5 or 6 songs. And when I say I'm brutal on this, you just simply don't understand. I mean, I murder this thing. Every song, all the way down, all the way up, back and forth. I'm just incredibly hard on my trim systems. So it's very important for me to have everything set up correctly. So after you get your strings stretched, and they are stretched out the best you can get them stretched, go ahead and retune the guitar. Okay, now if you have a floating type trim system, what you want to do now is you want to start adjusting the trim system. Now, most guitars, like on my EVH Wolfgangs, they have the claw type system with the screws that you adjust in to adjust the actual tension on the trim system. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. Let me grab a guitar. All right, here's my Wolfgang. And as you can see, we got the springs right here. If I'm looking up, I'm looking into my monitor. Make sure you're seeing this. We got the springs here. This has a brass block in it, of course. And then you got these screws here. And this is what you use to adjust the tension of the trim system. Now, on this type of trim, it's pretty easy because this does not bend backwards. This is not a floating trim. So the balancing act isn't quite as critical as it is on a full floating trim. So, on this particular type of Ibanez, you have this little wheel right here, and this adjusts the tension on the string. I love this system. This is the Zero system they have on the back of this. Absolutely love this. So after you get your guitar in tune, completely in tune, we're not worried about the intonation yet. Right now, we just want to make sure that we have the correct string tension on it. The guitars are in tune, whatever tuning you're using, if you're down a half step or whatever it is, make sure they're in tune perfectly to what you need. And at that point, we're going to check the trim system. Now, I keep mine, probably can't see it, but I keep mine relatively level. I don't like mine ramped up in the back or too far down in the back. I keep mine very, very level. So what you do is take this wheel on this particular guitar or on a guitar with a claw system and adjust your tension. If the bridge is too high and sticking up in the back like this, then obviously we need to bring this down. So when we start bringing this down, the guitar is going to go crazy sharp. So bring it down to where you want it, retune the guitar. And when you retune, it's going to lift the bridge back up a little bit because now you're creating more tension back on the guitar. So it brings it up, adjust the wheel or the claw, bring the bridge back down, retune the guitar. You're going to have to do this several times because this is a perfect balancing act between the tension on the strings and the amount of tension the strings put on the trim system versus the amount of tension the springs put on the trim system. So like I said, this is an absolute balancing act, and you keep doing it over and over and over until your guitar stays in tune and your trim is where you want it. And you may have to do it 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. Like I said, this is an absolute balancing act to get this right. You can't just make an adjustment to your guitar and think you got it. On this guitar, I probably had to do this 4 or 5 times to get this to stay where I wanted it. So once we have the strings set in tune and our trim system in place where we want it, all right, at this point, we are going to start checking out the guitar itself, because until this is in tune and this is where we need it, the rest of it is irrelevant, because we can't set the action if this is not where we want it. Because as soon as we adjust this, if this is really up high in the back and we adjust it down, it's going to bring the action down also. So now all the work you did here is completely pointless. So strings are in tune. This is set where we want it. All right, now we're going to start setting up the guitar itself. And again, this is a balancing act. There is no simple way to do this and make it perfect like that. This absolutely takes time. So the first thing you want to do at this point, and we're not putting the nut back on the guitar yet because we still got things we got to check out, and we're going to have to retune some more. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to start checking our clearance on our guitar. We're going to start messing with the action. Now, the best thing to do here for the action is to press up at the top around the 1st fret and around the 15th to 17th fret. And what you want to do is you want to look and see how much play you have in the middle between the two. You should have minimal play. And let me show you what I'm talking about again. I'll do it down here. Go about to the 15th or 17th fret, press at the 1st fret. And then you want to check the clearance you have between the two. And you should have minimal clearance. That string should barely move up and down on top of that fret. And this is going to give you an idea of how much relief you have in the neck. Now, granted, you can look down the neck and you can see if it has bow in it or not, but that's not going to tell you how much you need in the neck, because you may need relief, you may not need relief. Not all guitars need bows in the neck. Not all guitars need relief. This one is actually shockingly straight and has very little relief in it. So do that. And I normally do it on this string here, the high E and the low E, to see how these are set up, because these require different types of adjustments, because this string is much bigger and vibrates in a bigger circle than the high E does. It vibrates in a much smaller circle, so it doesn't need as much clearance above the fret as the low E does. So we're going to check this out. And if you have a tremendous amount of clearance here between the strings, and like I said, there's no set number. You can't just go on the internet and say, well, if I press it the 17th and the 1st, what should my clearance be? You're going to get 10,000 different numbers, because everybody likes guitars set up differently. And what you're checking for is minimal between the fret. If this is the fret and this is the string, you want minimal clearance. And I mean, I'm talking a couple of hairs worth of clearance from pressing this down and pressing in the middle. And I do mean minute. I can't stress how little that is. Now, granted, if you do this and the string is laying on the fret, you have no clearance, then you have to put relief in the neck. So let's say you got too much relief in your neck. You got too much clearance here. What you're going to do is you're going to get your Allen wrench. Most guitars come with the tools to fix everything on the guitar. Put it into, on the Ibanez, it's up here at the top, remove the cap, put it into the truss rod, pull it towards you to get rid. We're going to get rid of this bow, and we're going to start straightening this neck up. And what you want to do this little by little. Little turns make big differences. Do it an eighth each time. And each time you do it, you want to go back and check that clearance. Check it on the top, check it on the bottom. Check it on the top, check it on the bottom. And if you still have too much relief in it, if you still have the string still moving too much, when you fret this off like this and you're pressing down in the center, give it another eighth turn. And you keep doing that until that string barely, I mean barely, is above that fret in the middle right here. And you keep making that adjustment, and vice versa. If you press this down and the strings are already touching the fret and you have no clearance, then put it in and eighth turn it away from you to start putting. We're going to go from a flat and we're going to start putting a bow in the neck to give you a little bit of relief. You will find the spot that you like eventually once you get it done. Now, as a good rule of thumb, and I got this from buying my Eddie Van Halen guitars, my Wolfgangs. They come with a little booklet on how they set up their guitars and the clearance they put on their guitars. At the 12th fret, all right, at the 12th fret, they have 3/64 clearance at the 12th fret between the string and the top of the 12th fret. And that's just kind of a go-by gauge. You might like it lower, you might like it higher. But if you go on the internet, I actually saw one where a guy says he uses his 6 to 8/64. That is huge. That's extremely high. I always try to go for around 3/64 on the string here and here. There again, I do the both the E's. I try to go for 3/64 on both of the strings. And then if the neck's really good and you can get the neck really straight and your frets are good, you can actually take that down to 2/64, and that's going to be just crazily fast. Crazy fast action. You just got to make sure that you're not getting fret out somewhere on there. If your frets are good and level, then you shouldn't have any problems. I do have guitars that run down to 2/64. This one is damn close. It's right in between. The action on this guitar is shockingly fast. So after you do this and you're checking for the relief on the neck, if you need to add relief or remove relief, set it with your truss rod. To get rid of the bow, pull it towards you. To add bow, push it away from you, as if you're holding the guitar like this. Then to start adjusting that. Now, when you do this, it's going to knock your guitar out of tune again. After you adjust this, retune the guitar. After your guitar's retuned, check your trim to make sure it's still in the correct location. If for some reason something has changed, then you got to go back again, adjust the wheel or the claw, put this back, retune the guitar, so on and so on and so on. Because every time you make an adjustment, it affects the entire guitar. If we have the guitar set and in tune the way we like it, but we just, you know what, for whatever reason, we want this all the way down on the bottom, that's going to create a tremendous amount of tension on the guitar, and that's going to affect the neck. So by screwing this all the way down to the bottom, the string tension is going to add more bow to the neck. So now you got to readjust the neck. And that's what I was saying. This is a balancing act. It's not one thing fixes all. So, but we're going to do this as if the trim was straight, and we're going to shoot for around 3/64 at the 12th fret on the action. And I have another video up. I highly recommend you watch it about doing that, restringing the guitar, checking the fret, checking the height and what I do. It's actually a pretty good video. All right. So let's do a quick recap. We put on new strings. We've stretched the hell out of them. Retune, stretch, retune, stretch, retune, stretch, retune. As many times as we got to do it to where when we stretch it, we're minimally out of tune. Set the trim where you want it. Retune the guitar. It will move the trim. Reset the trim, retune the guitar. Reset the trim, retune the guitar. Keep doing that to where everything is in balance. You have the correct tension here, the correct tension here to keep this where it's supposed to be and the guitar in tune. After we do that, we're going to check the amount of relief in the neck. And like I said, your guitar may not need relief. And if anybody ever tells you, well, you got to put relief in your neck, well, they're idiots. This guitar virtually has, I mean, if you look down the side, you can't see any relief in it. And the string, I bet I could not slide this. You can't even see this. This is so thin. When I've got this fretted off, I promise you could not slide this in between the fret and the string. That's how close mine is because it is so straight. Sorry about the drinking, but like I said, allergies. So, all right. So now we're going to assume we have the relief set in the neck. So this part is set. All right. Now that we've got this done, we're going to retune the guitar. We're going to check this to make sure this is still where we want it. Okay, now here comes the fun part. What we're going to do is we're going to make sure the guitar's in perfect tune, as perfect as you can get it. Now, granted, there's a lot of good tuners out there. I use a TC tuner. It's very, very good. An old strobe tuner is really the most accurate, a good strobe tuner, but they're expensive. Real strobe tuners are expensive. So a tuner is one of those things you don't want to skimp on. The more you spend, generally the better tuner, the more accurate that tuner is going to be. So keep that in mind when you're doing it. And you just really need to have a very good tuner when you're doing this. So get this in tune as close to the perfect pitch of the string as you can possibly get in. This is set up, everything's good. So let's say we hit our E. We do this and we're in perfect tuning. We're dead on E. Now, when you check the intonation, you really don't want to do the harmonic that most people do, because that's not giving you a true sign of your intonation. Because if you set this in E and you click that, and then you adjust your intonation to where that says E, I can almost guarantee you when you press down on that 12th fret and do it, your intonation is going to be out. Don't use the harmonic. Press on the string. The reason you press on the string is because when you press on it, now we're adding tension to the string because we're physically moving the string down. And this is going to give us a truer indicator of what our intonation is. So after you get your guitar in tune, this is set where you want it. Go through, check the intonation on every one of your strings. Okay. So let's say we've done all this that we've done so far and everything's holding pretty good. We do our low E. We press it to 12th fret. And like I said, when you press, depress it. Don't grind it on there. Press it just hard enough to where the string rings out, because that's how hard you should be fretting a guitar anyway. If you're gripping the guitar and like you're choking your ex-girlfriend on the neck, you're squeezing it way too damn hard. So if everything's correct, when you do this, check then and see if your intonation is sharp or flat. If your intonation is sharp, we have to lengthen the string. So you're going to take this string, your E string, loosen it up. After you get it, put quite a bit of slack in it. on these type of trim systems, they have a little nut right here. Get your little Allen tool, break that nut loose. And like I said, if it's sharp, we're going to lengthen the string. So we're going to move the saddle backwards. And you want to do it incrementally. I mean, as small as you can do it. A lot of people use screwdrivers and try to pry them back a little bit. I just use my fingers. I get a lot of slack in it, and I kind of hold it, and I will push minimally and then tighten it up. Then I will check it again. If it's still a little sharp, I will keep repeating that process until I get that where it needs to be. So let's say the string is tuned very well. I do this, it's sharp. I break the saddle loose, I push it back, I tighten it. I have to retune the string. Of course, we got a lot of slack in it. Retune the string, check it again. If it's still sharp, loosen the string, push it back a little bit, retune the string, check it again. And you keep doing it that way until everything balances out. Like I said, this is a balancing act. There's no one thing to set up a guitar. It is multiple steps to set up a guitar correctly. So for the sake of argument, let's say we've got this one in. Now we go to the A and we repeat the process. And let's say this one's flat. So this one's flat. So now we have to loosen up the string, break this nut loose, and now we're pushing the saddle forward. And I mean, when I mean minutely, I mean, dude, I'm talking fingernail width. Small adjustments make big differences on guitars. Move it forward, tighten it down, retune the string, check it again. Check it again. And then after you do that, okay, now go through and retune all your strings, because you got to remember, we're making adjustments and we need to keep this in dead tune the best that we can. So move on to the D string. Check it at the 12th fret by depressing the note. Check it at the 12th fret. Move your saddle. Keep doing it till that gets in tune. Retune the entire guitar. Yes, it's a pain in the ass to set up a guitar correctly. And keep going down through all the strings. Every time you make an adjustment, make sure everything's in tune. Make an adjustment. Make sure everything's in tune. Make an adjustment. That is critical, that you're always checking the tuning of the strings to make sure they're in perfect tune for whatever tuning you may be using. All my guitars are down a half step, except for the one that I'm giving away on my YouTube channel. And speaking of, before we go any further, please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the bell. Please click share. We are, as you may or may not know, hopefully if you watch this, hopefully you've been watching my videos in the past, but if you are new, please subscribe to the channel. And we are doing the Trace Taylor Great Guitar giveaway. I'm giving away an Ibanez 1070 PBZ. It is an absolute beautiful guitar. I have videos about it up on my YouTube channel, so check that out. If we hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, yes, this is a fairly relatively new channel. I haven't really been all that active on it in the past because I have not had time. I didn't really get serious about it till about a year ago. But we got to hit 50,000. If we hit 50,000 subscribers, I'm giving the guitar away. And to some lucky person who's going to win a beautiful guitar. Granted, we got a long way to go, but we also have a lot of time to get there. I watched one of the channels I subscribe to get over 100,000 new subscriptions in a month. So tell everybody you know, get people to sign up. Even if they don't like music, get them to subscribe so we can make sure that we hit the number to give that guitar away, because that's going to be fantastic. And I really, really hope somebody wins that guitar. So, okay, please subscribe to the channel, click the bell, click share. Let's move on. All right, so now we've done this and we've got our intonation set. After all this is set, again, go back, make sure the trim is exactly where you want it when this is in perfect tune. If everything is still holding, all right, now here's where we've got some caveats that most people do not think of. And I get this a lot. I just cannot get my intonation set. No matter what I do, it will not stay in tune. Please help. Okay, here we go. When I bought this guitar, this very guitar, could not get the intonation set to save my life. Had everything set up. The problem was here at the nut. You used to be able to buy these in different heights. Well, you can't do that anymore. Now it's apparently one size fits all, which is bullshit because that doesn't work for all guitars. But apparently that's how it is now. And excuse me one second. So since it is that way, until this is correct, now you can get the guitar in tune. and you can get your trim where you want it with the correct tension. But you're never going to get your intonation set. And chances are, if this is too high, the setting in your neck is wrong also. So this one was shockingly high. So how much clearance should I have at the first fret? And there again, if you go on the internet and look at that, you're going to find 10,000 different answers. This is a feel thing, an absolute feel thing. So this is what I do on this guitar, because I knew the nut was high. The intonation would not stay in. Chances are, if you keep doing this and this is correct, and you don't have it sticking up 8 miles high, I mean the entire thing. Usually if you have your trim system, the plates fairly level with the body, chances are you're going to be pretty close to where you want this to be and have it fairly level. You don't want it sticking way up in the back or way down in the front. They're not made to be used that way for a floating trim. You put them pretty much level, and that gives you the clearance in the back, and that gives you all the clearance you need in the front without anything weird happening to the guitar. But if you just cannot get the intonation in no matter what you do, this is correct, what the hell's going on? Chances are the problem is right here at the nut. And this is something most people overlook. When I bought this, the nut was extremely freaking high. And the clearance between this and the first, I didn't measure it off, but I guarantee you, I could have stuck a quarter in there. It was massive. And no matter what I would have done, I would have never gotten the intonation correct, because this was so high that when I was pushing down the 12th fret for my intonation, it was having to move the string too far. And I was trying to compensate it first by the neck, but that's never going to be correct. It's always going to be an issue, because I was trying to actually take all the relief out of the neck and straighten it as much as I could to pull the back of that headstock down to get clearance, because I really didn't want to deal with this if I had to. But it got to the point where I had no choice. I just could not get it set up correctly. I could get the action low. I could get it low by almost putting a damn bow in the damn neck, a reverse bow in the neck. But then I was fretting out because I was missing the clearance I needed right through here. So I was like, all right, I got to fix this damn thing. So this is what I do. Now, this is how I do all my nuts. Now, if you have a guitar with a trim system on it, not a locking trim, that has like a bone nut or a plastic nut or whatever, the fix is a little easier. They actually make tools to slot those strings. And let's say you're just having a real hard time with the intonation on the E string, the E and the A. They make a little file that goes in between that slot. And what you do is you pull your string out of it, put that file in there, and you make one pass, just one pass. Because as soon as you move it, you're removing material. Remember, you cannot add material back. Put the string back in, retune the guitar, and then check it again. Now, here's the deal. When you're checking this, press it at the 3rd fret, right here. If you press here at the 3rd fret, the amount of clearance you have between this string and the 1st fret should almost be non-existent. I mean, there should be hardly nothing there, because the goal is to get this as close to this 1st fret as you possibly can without it buzzing out on an open string. But that's not that big of a deal. Let me explain to you why here. And I'm going to explain to you why I do it and how I do it and why I do it the way I do it. I like having full control over everything that I do on my guitar. So like I said, this was insanely high. When I would press it at 3rd string, I had so much tension, I could physically move that string. I mean, so much of a gap, I could move that string up and down. And like I said, when it was unpressed, I could get a quarter under there. It was massive. So, like I said, if you have a plastic nut, you can get the files, make one pass, put the string in, retune, one pass, put the string in, retune, one pass, and you just do it for all of them to get it to where it's supposed to be set for here. That's actually relatively easy. Once you get that done, retune the guitar, recheck your intonation, and I guarantee you, you're going to be good to go. But if you have a locking nut, this is where it becomes a pain in the ass. What you have to do is take the locking nut off. Now, you're going to have to file this thing down. Now, do not think for a second you can get a piece of sandpaper, put it on your counter, and spin that thing around. You will spend a month. This steel on here is shockingly hard. And it has to be because you've got steel strings sitting on top of it, being forced into it. So it has to be very hard to keep the strings from cutting into the metal. You're never going to sit there with sandpaper and do this. You are going to have a belted sander. There's no way around it. Now, if you don't have one, any guitar repair shop worth its salt is going to have one of these things. I'm not talking Guitar Center. I'm talking a place where people actually know how to fix guitars, not just do your basic setups like a Guitar Center and places like that. Any real guitar shop is going to have a belt sander in it. And now, if they've got a table belt sander, the belt sander is going to have a bar. If it's rolling this way, the sander, there's going to be a metal bar that the sandpaper is rolling up under. You're going to have to take this off, put it up against that bar, and click on that sander. Now, no matter what you do, you're not going to be able to get that to sand perfectly evenly down. One side's going to be lower or higher than the other because you're having to hold that still with your finger, and you just cannot put perfect pressure on that thing. But here's where you got to be careful. And there's a couple things you can do, and this is the hard part, so this is going to take a minute. You can take your ruler. When you take this out, you can measure the depth of your fretboard to the actual neck itself, because obviously there's going to be a shelf there where the nut sits. You can measure that, then you can measure the thickness of the nut itself, subtract the two. And that'll get you pretty close. What I do is I don't measure it because, like I said, it's more of a feel thing for me. I will take the nut and I will grind it down quite a bit. I'll put it back on the guitar. I'll set the strings in it and I'll test it again. Because like I said, this is a complete feel thing for me. And then I'll hold it here and I'll see how much clearance I got. If I got too much, I'll take it back off. I'll sand it down some more. Check it again. If I got too much, I'll sand it down some more. Right when it's getting about perfect, I sand it down even more. I sand mine too low. So when I put it back on, you can't even do that. It's completely fretted out at the first fret. The reason I do that is I like to have the ability to shim mine back up, because you got to remember, this string is a hell of a lot thicker than this string. So this theoretically should not be perfectly straight. Theoretically, it should be tilted a little higher on this side than on this side, because the strings are different gauges. And the way these come, they pretty much come set up to where they're level. It's not what you want. So I actually take mine down too far. I shim it back up with aluminum foil. I do not use shims. Well, why do you use aluminum foil? Very simple. Do you know how thin aluminum foil is? It's crazy thin. And I can bend and fold and manipulate aluminum foil without it coming unfolded or whatever it is. So what I do, and like I said, this is very time consuming to do this correctly. I put a little piece of aluminum foil under just one side, bolt it down, tune the guitar, I check it. If I still don't have enough clearance, then I take that out, get another piece, and then I will bend it, which doubles the height, obviously. Tuck it back in, and you don't have to pull this off, you just got to loosen it. Tuck it back in, do it again. I keep doing that to where this string, I wish my camera would pick this up. There is virtually no movement between me pressing this first fret right here and pushing that string down. That string is, I'm talking microns above that fret. And I keep doing it little by little till I hear the string ring. Then I will tune, make sure everything's in set where it's supposed to be. Make sure the relief in my neck is set where it's supposed to be. Shouldn't really have to adjust this really at this point. And then once I get that to where it'll ring, then I start on this side. Because you got to remember, we're only shimming the two sides. You're not shimming the middle. And this actually has a little buzz in it. But the guitar could be out of tune too. Last time I played in an outside show, so it could have done some adjustment. So this, see? I just got some buzz in my low E. This was not there. Things change over time. So, in the buzz I have here, I'll get to that in a second. So, like I said, with this being correct, everything being correct, now I'll start shimming this side, little by little, to the point where I have virtually no clearance whatsoever over that first fret. no clearance at all. Once I get that set, I will retune the guitar to when I do that and I have no buzz. I'll retune the guitar. Trim should still be pretty good at this point because we really haven't changed tension all that much, but it could adjust your neck here just a little bit. All right. So make sure that all this is set where you want it. And like I said, a good guide is taking this and measuring the gap between the fret and the bottom of the string, 2 to 3/64 if you like fast action like I do. Once you get all that set on both sides, and like I said, the reason I shim, because this should not be perfectly straight because these strings are different gauges. Once I get my shim set and everything seems to be pretty good, then I can go in and start making any fine tunings that I need to at that point. So let's say I've got this set to where I've got minimal clearance over here, but up here I notice I got a little more clearance than I want. Okay, at this point, we're going to start adjusting this. This has 2 screws in it for a reason, because like I said, since we have different gauges on the strings, it should not be sitting perfectly level. The high E side should be turned down, minimally more than the low E side. Or the low E side should be up a little higher because, like I said, this string vibrates a lot more. And when a string vibrates, it moves in a circle. The thicker the string, the more room it needs to vibrate. The thinner the string, the less room it needs to vibrate. So you don't need as much clearance on this side, on the high E side, as you do the low E side. So I will go in, I will check this, make sure that all this is good. And of course, I'm checking it here. After I've got all this done, I'm going to go and I'm going to check this, the gap between the 12th fret and the high E, and the gap here. If the gap here is at 4/64, and this is at 3/64, and I have minimal clearance here, I'm going to adjust this. Because if I adjust the neck, it's going to adjust everything evenly. That's not what I want. I only want to adjust the high E side. So I'm going to put my nut in here. I'm going to turn this an 1/8 turn, and I'm just barely going to lift that up, which is what I'm going to do here on this. I'm going to turn this to get rid of this this buzz on the high E, because I already know this is good. So I digress. So actually what I'm going to do on this is I'm not going to adjust this. I'm actually going to add another shim to this side, because like I said, when I took this down, I took it down too far so I could build it back up. And then since I've done this guitar's played, I can't even count how many shows. But we've been playing inside, outside, all over the place in muggy weather and hot weather. And that has a tendency to get things to move and everything. So things are constantly changing on the guitar. So I'm actually going to shim this up a little more. And what I'm doing is I'm going to check this by running down every fret to see where my buzz goes away. Okay, right here at the 7th fret, my buzz goes away. So since I'm not getting buzz here, the problem has to be here. The problem can't be in this. Now, granted, I can adjust this and add some relief to the neck, which is going to bring this headstock up, but it's also going to bring up the action on every other string. I don't want to do that. I only want to bring the action up on this side. So I'm actually going to shim this up a touch more than what I had. Because right here at the 7th fret, my buzz goes away. So if I got fret buzz, typically from 5 to 1, the problem is here. If you got fret buzz generally in the middle, the problem is the bow in the neck. If you're getting fret buzz here, generally, the problem's in the bridge. And that's what I was saying. This is an absolute balancing act. There's no one thing you can do. Well, I'm just going to adjust my neck and everything will be perfect. Absolutely wrong. Nothing will be close to perfect. So again, I'm going to do a very fast recap on how to set up a guitar properly. New strings. Stretch the hell out of them. Tune, stretch, tune, stretch, tune, stretch, tune, stretch, tune. After you get that done, set the trim. After you get your trim set, the tension. Tune the guitar, set the trim. Tune the guitar, set the trim. Tune the guitar, set the trim. You're going to have to do that several times. You got to match the tension on the strings against the tension on the springs behind the tremolo system. And that's all we're doing is balancing out all this tension. After we get all that done and everything seems to be good, all right, then we're going to check the neck. All right, if we need to take relief out of the neck, put your nut in, pull it towards you, 1/8 inch turns. Little movements make big differences. 1/8 inch turns to get rid of relief. We need to add relief. 1/8 inch turns going away from you. Adjust it, retune, check the tension here, make sure this is where you want it. Keep doing that until you have, when you press it the 1st and around the 17th, minimal clearance right here around the 9th fret. In the middle is where you're checking. Minimal, and I mean minimal clearance. That thing should barely move. And you keep doing it until you get to that point. Like I said, there's no set number. EVH recommends that on a guitar tuned perfectly, tuned to E, nothing changed, you should have around 3/64 across the 12th fret. This one's actually a little lower than that. So we've got the next set. We still have correct tension here. Now we're going to start working on the intonation. We're going to hit our E, make sure it's in perfect tune. We're going to fret. Do not use harmonics. Harmonics do not add tension to the string by pressing on it. Remember, when you press on the string, just press just enough to make it sound off. If you're pressing harder than that, then you're actually going to knock the note even sharper than what it should be, because you're depressing it down. When you're pressing a string, let me cover this real quick. You have your frets. When you're pressing a string, pretend I have my other finger, the string is being pressed just to where it touches. If you press it too hard, then the string's actually going to bow down between the frets, and it's never going to be in tune, and your intonation is never going to be set. Just hard enough to get to the top. Once you press that, get to the top, adjust your intonation on it. Loosen it, adjust the block either forward or backward, however you need to go. Tighten it back up, retune everything. Check it again, tighten it up, retune everything. Do that across every single string. It takes time. If you do all that and everything's playing perfect, you're good to go. But if you're still having issues, if you're still having intonation problems, the problem is the nut. And this is the hard work right here. Like I said, if you got a bone nut or a plastic or whatever, get the file, one pass, put the string in, check it. Take it out, one pass, put the string in and check it. If you have a locking nut, this is where it gets hard. What I do is I take mine down too far and I shim it back up. That way I have total control on where that is sitting, because I can shim that. Think how small a piece of aluminum foil is. Shockingly thin. And so now this string playing open has no buzz except on my high E. And it's actually pretty bad. And when I go to my 5th fret, a little bit, 7th fret, I have no buzz at all. My problem's in my nut. So I'm going to take this piece of aluminum foil out, see how many folds I got in it. Let's say I've got 2 folds. I'm going to cut out another small piece that I can fold 3 times. Put it back in there, tighten it up, retune, and I'm going to keep doing that to where there's no buzz on the slow E. No buzz at all. Now, if I do this and it raises my action up a little higher than I want, and I know my neck is good, I'm going to lower it right here at the bridge. Because remember, I'm going to tell you this again, this is a balancing act. This is not getting one piece good and to hell with everything else. You have to get the bridge good, the neck good, and the nut good. If any of these 3 things are out of spec, you will never get your guitar set up properly. Never. You will fight it the rest of your life. So when you buy that new guitar from Sweetwater or from Guitar Center, God forbid, and it goes through its 90-point inspection, blah, 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 bullshit, get your guitar and be prepared to spend 2 hours resetting up your guitar correctly, because I promise you, you're going to have to. And I'm not saying they're doing a bad job, but they're setting it up to some kind of Joe Blow, let's make everybody happy standard. That's not going to make you happy. I guarantee you, my setup, you may not like it because my action is crazy low on all my guitars. Maybe too low for you. And here's the thing, real quick. This is how I test out if my action is too low. Forget all the measurements, the penny test. Forget all that bullshit. This is what I do. Oh, one more pointer. After you do your intonation, always check your intonation with your guitar up like this. There's a thing called gravity, believe it or not. And it does make a difference. So after you get it in tune, then depress your 12th string and do it. Then check your intonation. Lay it back down, make your adjustment. Always test your intonation with the guitar sitting up like this. Never test it with it flat. You can adjust it here, but then test it like this. I almost forgot to say that. That is very critical. But this is what I do. Seriously. When I'm playing my guitar, and let's say I've been at the 15th string, If I bend up and the string above it instantly rolls under my finger and both sound off, I raise my action. And I do it, I mean, I'm talking not even eighth turns, I'm talking 16th turns until that, right on the edge of that stopping. And that's literally how I like my guitars. And that keeps my action around 2/64ths, between 2 and 3/64ths. When I bend, and I only do it on these two strings, the E and the B. When I bend that up a full step, and if I can hear the B string sounding off, that means the B string action, that means the action is so low that the B string is getting caught under my finger instead of riding on the tuff, and it's sounding off every time I bend. I will adjust my action until that stops. And I'll do the same thing on the B. And as soon as I cannot hear that G string, then I know my action is good. And that's what I was saying. It's 100% a feel thing. There's no instructions. There's no set. Well, if you do this here, this here, this here, your action is going to be perfect. This is 100% a feel thing. Here's the good news. Once you do this several times, you actually get pretty damn good at it. And then you know how you like all your guitars set. So you get to a point when you buy a guitar, you just start going to town on it because you know what to do. All my guitars play shockingly similar, even though they're all shockingly different guitars. It's insane. But I've gotten to the point where I've done it so much, I'm really damn good at it now. And you will be the same way. So what I suggest you do, when you buy guitars, don't take that to Guitar Center and let some 20-year-old kid who's never worked on guitar in his life, who just, whatever have you, do it yourself. The only reason you need to go to a professional is when something is seriously wrong with the guitar. The setup, always fixable. Always. Unless you break off one of the freaking stem nuts in here, then you got a problem. But other than that, do it yourself. You will be better for it. It'll help you understand your instrument better. And I promise you, after a few tries, you figure it out, you will know exactly how to do your setup on every single guitar you own. So on that note, I'm going to wrap that up right there. Like I said, I got a tremendous amount of questions about this. I hope this was very easy to understand. Like I said, I was not going to bring out tools and start hacking through my guitars and all that. I can simply talk through the steps. Because it's not so much, well, show me how to turn a screw. It's more, what do I need to do? And that's what this is. This is what you need to do to make sure this is set up perfectly. We're not looking for a good setup. We're looking for a great setup. So on that note, I'm going to wrap it up right there. And like the great Sammy Hagar says, if you miss the beat, you lose the rhythm and nothing falls into place. And I'm going to tell you now, if your shit on your guitar is not in check, don't even worry about the beat because you're going to be out of tune. And that's going to suck for you, your band, and everyone in the audience. Get that worked out. Do it yourself. You will get good at it. I guarantee it. If you have any questions, drop me a comment. I will answer back and see what we can do to get everything sorted out and worked out. And until the next time, my friends, rock on.